So from the last video that it cut off at, 5/6 we were saying is the amount of the hours. Okay, so determine the unit rate when the turtle speed is expressed in miles per hour. So we are going to write miles per hour. The number of miles was 7/8 divided by the number of hours, which was 5/6 of an hour. Unit rate, we said, means the denominator is going to be 1. So we have to divide by 5/6. Actually, take that back. That's not incorrect, but we need to learn that we can multiply by the reciprocal as well. So if we multiply by the reciprocal of 5/6, which would be 6/5, in the denominator we're getting 5 times 6, which would be 30. 6 times 5, which is 30, meaning my denominator is 1, which is what we want for unit rate. So if we're going to do it to the bottom, we have to do the same thing to the top. So 7 times 6 is 42, and 8 times 5 is 40. Okay, so we're still keeping the denominator. At the top we still have miles, at the bottom we still have hours. So for 1 hour, 42/40 will simplify. 42, 2 will go into 42, 21 times, 2 will go into 40, 20 times. So 21/20 mile per hour. So the unit rate is 21/20, which means the turtle speed is 21/20 miles per hour. Let's go a step further and let's change that. 20 will go into 21 one time with 1 left over. So 1 and 1/20 miles per hour. Okay. We're showing it this way so that we make sure that we can see the number of miles per hour. So we can see that we have a denominator of 1 right here, and that what is at the top is the number of miles, so that you understand that it's not 21 miles per 20 hours. It's 21/20 mile per hour. Okay, so just to recap, miles per hour would mean we're doing the number of miles divided by the number of hours, which is what we have up here. Okay, we have 7/8 divided by 5/6. Keep, change, flip, keep, change, flip just means you keep the first thing and then you multiply by the reciprocal. You multiply times 6/5, which is what we did right here. We multiplied by the reciprocal. Okay, so those two things are the exact same thing. This way is just showing you that you have a 1 in your denominator, you have your unit rate, And so you're understanding where the words are coming from, miles per hour. Okay, so the exercises. We're going to just go ahead and do the exercises together. For Anthony's birthday, his mother is making cupcakes for 12 of his friends at daycare. The recipe calls for 3 1/3 cups of flour. The recipe makes 2 1/2 dozen cupcakes. She only has 1 cup of flour. Is there enough flour for each of his friends to get a cupcake? Explain and show your work. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about independent and dependent variables, and this is saying for 1 cup of flour. And so we're actually going to do it both ways. So for 1 cup of flour, so I'm thinking 1 cup, denominator is 1, and so therefore for 1 cup, flour has got to be my denominator. And therefore the number of dozen, and we're going to do it as dozens. So the number of dozen is at the top of cupcakes. So we have 2 1/2 over the amount of flour, which is 3 1/3. We see that we have mixed numbers, so we need to change them to improper fractions. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5 over 2 divided by 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10 thirds. We want a 1 in our denominator for 1 cup of flour. So multiply by our reciprocal. So 3's will cancel, 10's will cancel, and I'm left with 1 in the denominator, where 30 over 30 is 1. And if you do anything to the bottom, whatever you do to the bottom of a fraction, you have to do that to the top, even if it is a complex fraction. So we multiply times 3 over 10 at the bottom, we have to multiply times 3 over 10 at the top. So 15 times 3 is 15, 5 times 3 is 15, and then 2 times 10 is 20. So then we interpret it. We can have 15 20ths of a dozen for 1 cup of flour. So can each of his friends? Well, 15 20ths of a dozen, and he has 12 friends, so we don't have a full dozen there. We have 15 20ths of a dozen. We have part of a dozen. So is there enough flour? No. As long as you're showing and explaining your work, then you can be correct no matter which way you do it. So let's show that. Let's prove it. Let's do it the other way. Let's do the amount of flour that we have per dozen. So the amount of flour that we had was 3 1/3. The number of dozens, 2 1/2. Okay, so still 3 1/3 changed to 10 over 3. 2 1/2 changed to 5 over 2. Multiply by the reciprocal so that the 2's can cancel, the 5's can cancel, leaving me with 1. And if you do it to the bottom, you have to do the same thing at the top. So 2 times 10 is 20. 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, so let's interpret it. 20/15ths of flour for 1 dozen cupcakes. If she only has 1 cup of flour, 20/15ths of flour is how much she would need for 1 dozen. 20/15ths is the same as 1 1/3. 15 will go into 20 once, with 5/15 left, which simplifies to 1 1/3. So 1 1/3 cup of flour. So does she have enough? No, she needs 1 more 1/3 cup of flour. So either way that you look at it, explain, show your work. Both would be accurate. Number 2. Sally is making a painting for which she is using red paint and blue paint. The table below shows the different mixtures being used. Okay, so we have a table. We're assuming this is X and this is Y in a table. What is the unit rate for the values of blue paint to red paint? So this to this. So it is the blue paint is your Y, the red paint is your X. What is the unit rate? Okay, so blue paint, the amount of blue paint was 2.5 to the red paint, which is 1.5. So 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5 over 2 divided by, remember this is blue, we should label that, this is red. Okay, so 1 times 2 is 2 plus 1 is 3, so 3 over 2. Unit rate meaning 1 in the denominator. So multiply by the reciprocal. These will cancel and these will cancel. And if you do it to the, giving you 1 in the bottom. And if you do it to the bottom, do the same thing to the top. 2 times 3. 5 times 2 is 10. Actually, our 2's can cancel. So the 2's can cancel. 2 will go into 2 once. Cross simplify. So then 5 times 1 is 5. 1 times 3 is 3. So 5/3. 5/3 is the unit rate. 5/3 blue paint. We just want the unit rate right now. We'll go do words in a second. 5/3. Whoops, still an eraser. Is the amount of blue paint proportional to the amount of red paint? So when we divide each time, would we get the same answer? So remember, we have to have a constant. So in the first one, it was 5/3. So I'm looking at this and I'm deciding I don't necessarily want to do division on fractions for every single one of these. So I want to change this. I'm going to do a decimal. So 5 divided by 3 in my calculator gives me 1.6 repeating on forever. 0.6 repeating on forever is 1 2/3. So that is what my constant would have to be for every single one. So the next one, 2 2/5. So that's 2 is the whole number, 0.2/5, meaning 2 divided by 5. In your calculator, when you do 2 divided by 5, you get 2.4. So you're doing y, which is 4, divided by 2.4 equals. So do that in your calculator. 4 divided by 2.4. The last time I brought up the calculator, it messed everything up. So I'm doing it on my handheld, on my phone calculator. So do it on yours, and you'll get 1.6 repeating on forever. Okay, so our next one, 3 3/4. So 3 is the whole number. 3 divided by 4 is 0.75. So we're getting practice with changing fractions to decimals. And then 6 1/4 is 6.75.